Oh, rain you have to deal with snow and ice and stuff that we have to deal with here in Minnesota because it's winter now over here. So
Yeah, well, people out here are spoiled. Bay
that's
Area, California. We got a lot of
right.
other issues, but the weather's good. That's
What would
one
you
positive.
what would you do if the weather guy said, "Oh, we're in for a blizzard"? Has San Francisco or the Bay Area ever experienced like that type of stuff before?
No, never. Nothing like that. I mean, now and then it will snow, like on the foothills. You can see it on the low-lying mountains, in the
Uh-huh.
background. But
Sure.
when it snows, it's infrequent, and it's like all the kids run out that've never seen snow. We do have Tahoe right up there. This is not like we've never seen snow out here. We got California's got it all. Tahoe, Lake
Sure.
Tahoe is about 3 hours away, three and a half hour
Okay.
drive from here.
Okay.
But it never snows down here. It's super mild, you know.
Oh, wow. You're
Um,
just lucky. Because me, I tell you, I mean, I lived in Minnesota pretty much all my life, other than the little time that I lived in South Dakota. But even in South Dakota, we experienced winter, but it was more, it wasn't as bad as what we get up here in the northern parts of Minnesota, I'd say. Because I'm close to
I
Canada and all that. So,
Yeah, dude. I remember a while back. I remember playing a gig. I think it was North Dakota, but it could have been South Dakota. I think it was North Dakota. I think it was called the Black Hills Festival or something like that.
uh,
But long story
okay.
short, we didn't end up playing. A tornado came and they shut the whole thing down. It was
Jeez.
Creedence Clearwater Revisited was the headliner, but it was a big festival. It was like I think Blue Oyster Cult was on there. Jeff Tate, solo project, the singer from Queensryche,
Okay.
badass singer. He was
I've
doing
heard of
his
Queen,
set,
right?
and yeah, he I hope so. Awesome metal band. He was doing his set, and then yeah, we had noticed like at sound we were setting up. Yeah, like he finishes his set, we're setting up, and we just noticed these gnarly wind gusts coming up, and even just blowing like the half stacks. Like we'd have Marshall half stacks, and they were kind of getting blown. They weren't getting blown over, but and then like one of the crash cymbals of the drummers just kind of like picked up and like flew a few feet, and then
Jeez.
there was a lighting truss, that was like
Uh-huh.
way up connected, and that thing started going.
Ugh. Oh,
There was a
jeez.
banner for the radio station or something. It just flew out like a kite. I'm like, Dad, don't stand under there. We don't want we don't want
Yeah. Let
Curtis
let
Mayfield incident happening
let
here.
let the banner promote the events from far away,
Yeah, no,
with
it
the
was
wind.
crazy. I never felt wind like that, and how it could change on a dime too. Uh,
Wow. So I'm sure that's not your first incident with the bad weather doing outside gigs. I'm sure rain and all types of stuff has stopped, events. I'm sure that you've had to play or delayed many events if they didn't have a
yeah.
tent or anything like that. Or, you know.
Well, I mean, you can't do much in the rain if it's not covered, because the gear doesn't like rain. Electronics,
No, no,
it gets
no.
dangerous. A lot, what actually happens more often is I mean, you still got to play, but out here summers it gets pretty hot in California, and if it's like if you got all your pedals out on the stage,
Yeah,
um, they can get overheated, and people's
sure.
iPads and stuff won't turn on,
Oh yeah.
and you usually just have to make sure you cover your gear, but it's more heat than rain or snow out here.
I guess I
That's
forget that you
that's the
guys are
thing.
using a lot of computer software and stuff to make your sound do what it does and to do all the effects and stuff. Because some people do it manually and some people do it digitally. And I guess I forgot that some people use computers to make all their stuff work for
I
everything.
mean, it depends on what band, but something like the Greg Kim band, that's just straight ahead rock. They don't do any of that, right?
Old school,
Um,
old school.
but I was reading about the falling in reverse controversy. I don't know if you've heard of that with Eddie Trunk sounding off and
No,
well, I won't get into it, but some bands, the electronics is a big part of their sound, and yeah, that's a big deal. You gotta have that stuff working, or the show doesn't. It's not the same show.
sure.
Um, a lot of cover bands too. Like the thing is to have tracks playing. in the background. So you're basically everybody on stage is playing on a click. So everybody has like either a click in your in-ear monitor or like your stage wedge. Actually, you don't have the click coming, but the drummer has the click, the whole time, and there's actually like tracks going because it's a lot easier to cover. If you're doing some dance, or hip hop or something, there's a lot of production in those songs, and it just doesn't come off right without all that production. Usually musically it's pretty boring,
Uh-huh.
in my opinion, as a guitar player. There's not a lot I can do with like, 2 or 3 notes just over and over on guitar. So,
So
I'm tuning out
so that's why you
what's that?
guys wear the earpieces then. Okay, because I was kind of
Most
wondering
people
about that.
do, but guitar players, in my experience, because I do not, and I think it's a guitar player thing. We like to have the amp on stage. We like to have that air moving, that
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
speaker. It's
yeah.
a certain tone thing too. Now, not that the all the new modelers and stuff, and an amp modeler is basically like a digital. It's like a little computer that has algorithms and stuff that basically is a digital representation of like a bunch of like famous amps throughout the history of rock and roll, like
Sure,
Donald
sure,
Marshall,
sure.
Mesa Boogie, so Fender, everything's in there, and those are great. But the thing is, you don't have the speaker on stage, so if you're playing with a loud drummer, you're kind of at the mercy of the monitor mix. And if the monitors, nothing's worse than having not being able to hear yourself play when you're
Of
playing,
course.
right?
Sure. Even though it can be loud. See, I've never had that experience because I've never been a performer, so I don't know like what it sounds like in your guys' way. Like I know what it sounds like on the opposite side, with the speakers and everything and everything going on, but I've never experienced like what it's like with your view, so to speak. What you hear, what you don't hear. Do you hear more crowd noise than you want to hear sometimes? Do you hear less crowd noise? Does that interfere in how you play sometimes? There's a lot of questions that we could ask, about how things
Yeah.
work. But since you've done it, I mean, you kind of know like what you can handle and what you can't, I guess.
Yeah, well, I have no complaints about loud crowd noise. It's
Well,
usually the opposite.
I mean, like, does that interfere in like how you play sometimes? Like you're like, hey, yeah, everybody's like rocking, clapping or whatever. You know what I mean? I'm sure you
Yeah,
do.
yeah, totally. No, I wouldn't say the crowd noise. I would say like if your monitor mix is crappy. Um, you know what I mean? Like maybe the singer's way too loud, or
Sure.
even if it's just if the monitor level of your monitor is super hot and it's like blaring right in your face, that's kind of that can be a drag. So that I think that can definitely throw a musician off their game, if the monitor mix is jacked. But I don't think that about like I mean, well, I've never played it where the crowd was loud enough that I couldn't hear like
Okay.
anything on stage. That would be awesome though. I guess that'd be like a Beatles moment.
Oh, sure. I mean, I don't know how it goes nowadays when it comes to festivals. I don't really get to go to too many, like I used to, because around here we have stuff. We have people that come and play, but I'm kind of particular in the people that I like. Like if you guys came down and played closer to my area, I would definitely go see it because I like your music. I like everything about it. You guys are not just the and when I say you, I mean like the RyKihn band. I don't know of all the
Mhm.
other bands. I know you're in like a big like 13, 14, 15 bands, or you have a lot of other bands going on, and we can talk
Sure.
about that later. But like the RyKihn band, if you guys came down and like to Fargo or Thief River or Grand Forks or closer to my area where I'm from Greenbush, so it's like a little small town in the middle of northern Minnesota. So, but I'm just saying, like if you guys came closer, I would go see you because I like what you
Mhm.
guys do. You guys, I've always been a fan. I've been a fan of you guys' work for as long as I can remember. My dad introduced me to you guys when I was a little kid. We used to listen to like the tapes and stuff. I'm
Mhm.
mostly just the stuff that everybody else knew because my dad's kind of a mark for one hit wonders and stuff like that, or for hit songs more than he is for deep tracks. But as I evolved in the radio world and got to learn about how to broadcast and stuff like that, I got my ear for music changed so much. I wasn't just about the hits anymore. I was about how many deep tracks have these guys done? And your dad alone should be known for more than just not just a one hit wonder or two hit wonder or whatever. He has so much stuff out there that never gets no airplay. I used to play his stuff on my shows, all the deepest of the deep, just because that's the type of person I am. Because I feel why create songs for an album if you're not going to promote them or do anything with them? But you've done so much, and it's like, but people only know the breakup song and Jeopardy and maybe Lucky. That's probably about it. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah,
Yeah, I
nothing
mean, he
else.
had well, he had I don't know. I'm not even I don't even know myself perfectly, but I mean, I think he had at least a handful of albums before the breakup song came out.
Yeah,
So he probably had 5 or 6 albums before that that
sure,
never really, broke it big. But he was like it was like a regional thing, right? And that was back in the day when there was a way more of a rock scene, and from what I've heard, I mean, I wasn't really in the scene at that time. I was a little kid, but
sure.
from what I've heard of that time, you could basically make a living just playing in like the Bay Area or any metro area, from club to club. And I'm not talking about cover bands. I'm talking about like original singer songwriter stuff.
Sure.
So I think what Greg Kihn, like his deal was he built it, for organically from the ground up. Because the story was that my dad moved to he was born and raised in Baltimore, moved out here when I was like a baby, but he didn't come to the Bay Area first. He went to L.A.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and he met some people, but for whatever reason, um, the vibe wasn't right or whatever. He ended up coming up to the Bay Area after a few years in LA. And that's where he met like Matthew Kaufman, who was the founder of Berkeley Records, which was like this
Ah,
independent Berkeley record company.
I've heard of
And then
them. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
yeah, they had also had like Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers. I think that was the
Never heard of
biggest other band.
them.
You ever heard the song Roadrunner?
Oh, yeah.
Jeff played it, and my dad used to do that in his own version of it.
Sure.
Um, and then Earthquake was another local Berkeley band that never really had some big hits, but they had a cover of like Friday on My Mind that was big, and that's also when like radio stations would play like local rock too. So there's a
Sure.
lot more rock stations, FM stations, and I guess back then it would have been AM.
Oh, sure.
But anyway, long story short, man, my dad was out on the streets of like outside Sproul Plaza at UC Berkeley campus, just jamming, like just basically busking, him and a guitar player just kind of like singing, playing out for people to come and just throw tips in the guitar case. Um, and then it grew from there. So it grew totally organically. But by the time I was, you know, let's say maybe like by the time I was 9 or 10, I do have like, I do have those memories of him playing big ass shows in the Bay Area. I didn't really know much. I was just running around like like a little dork backstage, on all these hippies freaking out.
Sure, and not being,
But
I'm sure, confusing. Like, what's this all about? I'm sure, but
yeah, yeah.
as a little kid,
But
but sure.
for me, it was normal. Like I didn't know any better. I was like, oh, that's what my dad does.
Oh,
That's his
yeah.
job. It's awesome. Everybody loves him. So
It's nice that he could take you with, to so you could experience all this stuff.
well, no,
Rather than
those
just
are
have
the
you.
very no. That was probably like 2 or 3 times I can remember. Yeah, I was never allowed to go to like some of his shows.
Oh,
I'd be bummed out. But the story was that he told me that I've heard from other people too is that Greg Kim Band was hanging out in the some rehearsal place in Berkeley. This is in the early days, and they had some notoriety. They've been playing a bunch of shows around the Bay, and Bill Graham got their number, and Bill Graham called my dad. He's like, "Hey, can you guys come down to Winterland and I need an opening band for Black Sabbath tonight?"
oh.
And they're all in the same place. They're like obviously gonna say yes. It's another thing. I never said no to anything, right? So you just like. So, anyways, from what I heard, it was a pretty bad show. Like no, but totally
Sure.
different crowd, right? But
Okay.
and, it got rude, and I guess apparently whatever happened. I wasn't there. But after that, Bill Graham was very appreciative that they stepped in at the last minute. So Bill Graham started, hooking him up. And Bill Graham was a concert promoter. Bill Graham, famous, right, Bay Area. Um,
I really don't. Honestly,
he's like a Bay Area from way back in the day. I mean, he kind of
okay.
he's known as like discovering Santana,
Oh,
and
okay.
he was yeah, he was and he had a bunch of venues around the Bay Area, and he would kind of do the cross pollination thing, right? Like so,
Mix
putting
it up a little
matching up
bit.
band. Yeah, yeah. So and this is all I think before any hits happened,
Okay.
because the first album that was really big for my dad was RyKihn Roll, and that
Ah,
was the one that had breakup song on it, right?
yes, yes, yes. Well, because
I mean, I was
no,
yeah.
go ahead, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say my age at the time, I was I don't even think I was like hitting puberty yet. I was like a child. So
Well, I don't even know
I
how
was
old you are right now. I mean, I've never asked you your age. How old, I mean, are you in your 40s at least, or are you early
up
50s?
up
Because I
yeah,
mean,
early
you look
50s.
you
Early
look
50s.
you look good for your age, for whatever age you are. And I mean, I mean, I just see a lot difference in you,
Well,
compared to your dad. I mean, I was, because I know you kind of try to dress a lot like him, like in some of your shows, like the shirts that he used to wear. I see sometimes that's what you wear in your outfits when you go out on stage. So, I just get kind of it's a cool vibe anyway, that you can do all that stuff and everything, and find that cool style, because that's a style that you don't see a lot of people dress like that anymore. With the Michael J. Fox haircut and everything, or the hairdo or whatever, and the old clothes and everything. The long pants. Unless there are people that still do, but I know over here everyone's all modern day this, modern day that. So.
well, I mean, I guess it depends what the gig is, how I will dress. But yeah, I mean, it's cool to be able to dress rock and roll, like jeans, t-shirt, but make it a cool t-shirt or something. That's kind of the Greg
Well,
Kinn
it seems like he used
vibe, I
to
guess.
he used to have that cool style, like that. That's why I was saying, the messages, like you guys seem like you're the cool people, because you dress like you just, like nothing else matters. Like, we're just gonna do our thing, and take it or leave it. But this is who we are, and you're gonna love us one way or another.
Yeah, that's interesting because I always thought that I was like that was a Southern California versus Northern California thing. Whereas like Southern California is all the glam and appearance is like, it's maybe not the most important, but it's like as important as your musicality is like your look, your vibe, what's your, whatever, you're branding yourself. Whereas up here, it's always been jeans and t-shirt, like, I mean, from even when I was, so I graduated high school '89. So that was the
Okay.
height of the metal days, and that's what I was into at the time, right? But I remember like from the LA bands to the Bay Area bands, it was always like, "You poser, man, you're a poser." You'd hear poser all the time. So yeah, so I mean that was the thing. We
Okay.
could, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, maybe we should have
No.
been more into our appearance. I could always tell the LA bands when they came up here because they looked way cooler than us, and they tuned in between every song.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like,
Oh,
wow, that's
okay.
professional. Because bands
Well,
up here would like tune it at the beginning of the set, and by the time the set was over, like they might be slightly out of tune. But I was like, these guys
sure.
are pros, man. They're tuning in between every song, and their hair looks killer.
And how long does the tuning take every set of this, or every song that they do? Like, how long,
Yeah,
like a couple
no, I
seconds?
think well, you got to do what you can, and when the singer calls out the song, you got to be ready to go. So if
Yeah.
you only got half your guitar tuned, that's how it is. But I mean, I think that's definitely a thing that a pro has to do, like a professional, any musician, right? It's like your job is to sound perfect, play everything perfect, um, and whatever happens, happens. As
Oh,
far as like you just
absolutely.
you can't be like, wait, hold on, guys, I'm not ready. It's a rock and roll show, or
Yeah,
I mean, like
you gotta be ready.
yeah, yeah. Some bands I play in now, it's like we don't. I won't even get a 1, 2, 3, 4 click. The drummer's got the click in his head, so
Uh-huh.
the drummer's hearing like 1, 2, 3. I hear a click. I hear one snare hit, and I'm like, go, you know.
And that's what's kind of cool about, why I wanted to chat with you again, because it's like, it's first of all, it's been a while since the last time we chatted. I think I was in South Dakota at the time when we did a phone interview. I don't know if you remember that or not at all.
I do.
I don't know much about what you remember from me
I don't
talking to
remember
you,
what I
but
said, so if I repeat
no.
myself, stop me.
Well, it's all phone stuff, and before the pandemic, nobody heard of a thing called Zoom, and I just thought, well, everybody's using Zoom now, so this is way better than Skype as far as being able to record the audio from one person to another and not have to really do anything other than hit record, and there you go, and then it'll accept it as long as you have everything hooked up right. Skype
Yeah,
was
it's
totally
great.
different, so it's like it was like more of a mess than anything else as far as to get the
But
audio to so everybody could hear everybody.
I think that's like the one positive thing that came out of the pandemic was that people realized, like, oh, we can actually do a lot of this just on camera.
Sure. And it really helped
So
this app get really popular because and now everybody's using it as a normal thing now. So and that's how I want to do my interviews going forward. I just anybody I get, if we can do a Zoom, I'd rather do that than a phone interview because to me, phone interviews
oh,
are.
that's way better.
I'd rather just see the person who I'm talking to nowadays. I mean, it's 2022 for crying out loud. We should have had this a long time ago. You know, I think
Yeah,
anyway.
man. I mean, when the pandemic hit, it was pretty. I remember actually the day that Gavin Newsom like shut everything down here. I guess I don't know. It was sometime in March. I guess it would have been 2020. We were playing at
Yep.
I had a gig at a strip club. It was like a
Ah.
trio gig. It wasn't a strip club in the daytime. It was like a sports bar in the daytime, and they had music on. And this was like on a Sunday afternoon, and then later on they shut it down. So suffice to say, it was a pretty fun gig.
Oh, I'm sure.
But but anyways, that it got shut. We didn't even start playing. It was like, nope, we heard on the news everything's shutting down now, and it was, that surreal feeling everybody had. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't have to like rehash that, but I mean, yeah, every musician was kind of screwed at that point. And then I always had like I had another. I didn't have it as bad as other people because I did have like a musical tech gig I was doing. I was able to continue to work remotely, doing
Sure.
I was working for this video game Rocksmith, which is like a guitar. I'm not doing that currently, but I was basically doing guitar stuff for them, figuring out songs,
Oh, yeah.
transcribing, doing other stuff besides that. But anyways, so long story short, I kept working, that whole time in
Yeah.
2020, and then also teaching too. I've always enjoyed teaching guitar, and something I've always had going, regardless of if I was playing or not, since I graduated from music school way back in the day. So I was able to do that remotely. Now back then, you know, nobody was really doing, or nobody preferred remote lessons because it was just didn't you're not in the same room with the person. The
Sure.
vibe's a little different. It takes some getting used to on both ends. Like the teachers got to have their stuff together to be able to like, all right, well, here's the file here, do this, do that. You know what I mean? In real time and be on the computer. Um, but I mean, it was, like nowadays it's like half my students are still online, which is awesome. I don't have to leave the house.
Oh yeah. I mean, that
And
is nice.
like, I'd say like it depends what the student, like what the level of the guitar player that's taking the lessons, how they benefit from like online. Because if it's a complete beginner, it's gonna suck for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you've never touched a fret and you don't know what it feels like, that's when you want to have somebody in the same room counting off. But if it's somebody that's a little more intermediate and they already know, like, I want to get good at this, this, and this, like, it's almost better in a way to be online because you're way more organized with the information. You can be like, all right, here, check this. All right, here's the link for this YouTube video, and then here's these files for all these chords and stuff. So like everything's like way more organized,
Sure.
which is
Wow.
cool. I mean, so I live in Silicon Valley, so I
Yeah, I've
actually
heard of
have a
that.
lot of a lot. I have a lot of students that are like software engineers. So they're
Oh,
adults, but they're like, all these people that work at some of these tech companies here are super like they're very organized mindset and a very like analytical mind, and they're
sure.
definitely like high IQs. A lot of them are like Ivy Leagues because people move here for those jobs, right? That's why
Yeah.
it's so much to live here, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
But
you know, No, it seems like it's done really well for you. I mean, you're still enjoying what you do, and the fact that you can incorporate music rather than just doing a regular 9 to 5 and working at a grocery store. Because I'm sure a guy like you does not deserve or shouldn't be working in a grocery store. You should be doing your music, doing what you love. I mean, you got a
Yeah.
legacy to fulfill. But your own legacy, but that is not just a repeat of what your dad's done, but your own legacy too, because you know, I told you on one of the messages that I'm surprised, that I'm really, really surprised that a guy like you is not more in the media because you're the guy that's doing the good stuff and everything, but yet nobody talks about it. Nobody knows. Only some people know. I mean, I understand fame's not important. I get that. You have to earn that. But I feel
Hmm.
that in the way that you've lived your life and have done stuff, and I don't think I mean, yeah, we all have a past and all that, but I'm not talking about the dramatic. We're just you have a passion for what you do, and you're still doing it to your day this day, and you're probably gonna do it for the rest of your life until you don't want to do it no more and make a killer living. And yet, guys like you aren't talked about in the media, or you don't get enough praise for what you do. So I don't know. Does that make any sense at all, or am I
Yeah,
just trying to
yeah,
kiss?
man.
I'm not trying to kiss your
Yeah,
butt, but
yeah.
I
No, no,
I
I
respect
appreciate
you.
it.
So I respect everything about your legacy and just everything. So just I'm not a
Yeah, well,
fanboy, but I love what you guys do.
no, I really appreciate that. I mean, I've always been able to do. I may have like two or three different gigs, but it's all music stuff. You know what I mean? Like the
Huh.
transcribing the music. Like there's always these music tech gigs you can get. As long as you're educated, because I can read music. I went to, I understand a lot about music. I'd
Yeah.
say I'm like a guitar expert, but obviously teaching guitar or playing in a million different bands. I mean, the last actual non-musical gig I had was like when I was in college. I was a blood driver. Like I'd drive
Oh.
around in LA to pick up, like, to veterinary clinics and pick up these like lab samples.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was a weird ass job. The funny thing
Wow.
was the college I went to, I was a jazz guitar performance graduate. So my degree is
Oh.
like in jazz guitar, right? BFA jazz
Okay.
guitar.
Sure.
And there was two other dudes that had jazz guitar degrees, and we all had the same job, which was like not a good advertisement for that degree. You're like,
Jeez.
they're driving blood around.
Just
But
felt probably
I've
awkward, I
used my
suppose.
but I'm what's that?
Felt kind of awkward, I suppose. Just like this is not what we should be doing. We should be out playing or something.
Well, you
You
got
know?
to pay your dues. I mean, that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess
But
so.
I've used my music degree like my whole life, so I don't regret it at all. And like, yeah, I guess I've never just had that one gig. Some people are lucky. Some musicians are lucky they get that one gig with the big artist, and then they don't have to really worry about anything else, and they could just focus on that. I've always been like a hustler, you know what I mean? I gotta keep this, hustling guitar students, not hustling them like taking their money, but
Yeah,
like,
yeah, 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 yeah,
looking
yeah.
for marketing yourself in that
Sure.
regard. Um, doing this or that, moving stuff around for gigs all the time, you know, deciding which, I'm always getting double booked and like trying to move stuff around. Different bands want you on the same day, and then, but I guess I feel like that I might be a douche. I might be a douchey guy if I had been one of those that like made it really, never really had to work for or pay your dues, so to speak.
Well,
Um, and lifestyle too, that can send you down the wrong path. I've never, because you got to have your stuff together, man. You can't be like have a drug problem or alcohol problem,
sure.
um and expect to make it as a working musician. Now if you're a rock star, different story. That is your job to get, kind of, in a way. There's not a lot during the day, but I mean, but
Yeah,
there's a lot of unsung heroes, not heroes, but like unsung super talented
that
musicians,
that never
that
get the
just
credit at
exist.
all for anything, right?
Yeah, no, they just exist doing, wedding gigs. I mean, that's pretty much the my main thing was like, this year has been a super wedding season, and
Oh,
wedding gigs they pay great. And the Bay Area, I think in particular, has a pretty huge like wedding industry. So there's all these like weddings, and not only weddings but like private events, you know. So I'm like all summer I'm driving all over Northern California. You know, we have Napa wine country, right, which is right up the
Yeah,
street. That's a famous area. Beautiful. There's all these like venues that people rent out for private events up there.
sure.
Um, we have Carmel Valley in Monterey County, which is you know, a couple hours south. Tahoe, like I said, Tahoe, like I said, is right up, you know, a few hours away, maybe 3 or 4 hours.
Amazing.
So you have all these like natural beauty, like venues and scenic like destination places for weddings, and then on top of that, you have an obscene amount of money out here, you know. So
Sure.
people, it's crazy how much people spend on those things. Like I would just, you know, I would like not. Well, I don't want to. No, it's just for me myself. I would never spend like the amount of money that somebody would spend for a wedding. But we're talking about like people that are like, you know, like more. What's the word? Just rich people, super rich people. You know,
Oh, I'm
I never
sure. I'm sure.
rich or anything like that, and I just find it a little weird to people. It's almost like they're kind of showing off their wealth, you know, when they have these big opulent weddings. But the good thing about it is it employs a lot of super talented musicians. You know, whether it's the guitar player, you know, whether I'm sitting playing like as they're walking down the aisle, I'm playing like acoustic classical guitar, you know,
Yeah.
out on the lawn or something, or like the cocktail trio that's playing jazz, or
It's
like the
pretty
dance band.
amazing. It's pretty
Yeah,
amazing. That's for
so
sure.
we have a unique. I think we have a unique like wedding scene here that's like very. This is, you know, it's a good economy,
Oh,
not only for
absolutely.
musicians, even for like you know, the caterers, the people that do the flowers and stuff, you know, photographers. There's all kinds of people that are in that industry that got killed during COVID, you know, but now
Oh, sure.
tier had came back like double because you know, a lot of that stuff got postponed in
Yep.
2020. So and 2021 was light. um 2021 was we were getting back to it, but I think like gig wise, it'd probably be like 50% of pre-pandemic, and now 2022 is like almost to what it was. Although that's for like weddings and private events.
Sure.
Unfortunately, though, I feel like the original, not, you know, like original music and clubs and stuff like that. Just a lot of the infrastructure kind of is gone, you know, like a lot of those places that would have, I'm talking
Everything
about
is,
like, you know,
a lot of things have changed since that. Yeah.
yeah, Yoshi's, San Francisco, the Fillmore, like actually like awesome places that are open to the public for public gigs. Um
That's crazy.
it's rough, man. It's rough. And the cost of living here is crazy too, so that's driving a lot of people out.
But regardless, it seems like you're doing good for yourself. And,
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
yeah. I
and
actually
I don't want to take
no,
up
go
too
ahead.
much more of your time because it seems like for some reason on Zoom here they give you so much time once they hit the record button. So unless you want to do another session or whatever here
Oh yeah,
after,
I thought that since you maybe that's because I don't have the paid version of Zoom or whatever, but
yeah, since we're using
um
my account, I don't have the paid version of it either. So that's why it's
oh
like,
okay.
so I mean, I could stop this and we can do a part two if you want, if you have more, if you want to continue. But I'll leave that up to you. How much time do you have? Because I got
Oh, I
plenty of
got
time.
more than 6 more minutes.
Okay.
I got like 30 more minutes.
Okay.
So we could do. I don't know what. I'll leave it up to you, man. I'm down to
Well, why
talk
don't we
more.
just
Maybe.
say, why don't we just take a quick break? Okay. I'll let
Okay.
this upload or I'll let this convert and then we'll just talk again for a little bit.
All right. Sounds good, man. So
I'll
you'll
send you,
send me the link.
yeah, I'll send you another link. We'll do a part two. All
All right, Sean. Thanks, man.
right. Thanks.
Talk-
Everything all good
Hey,
again?
man.
I got to
Everything good.
record. Got the recording all set again. All right. Well, we're here for now. This is part two of our little. Well, it's not really what I call an interview, I guess, for anybody that's tuned out there. It's mostly just a conversation between two people about music, shooting the shit, as you say, or just having just a wonderful conversation. Because we're not here really to promote anything. We're not here to to talk about new albums or anything that's brand new. We're just here to talk about life in general. And this happens to be a guy who has music written in his life, pretty much his whole life. And his name is RyKihn, and he is the son of the legendary RyKihn. have to use the legendary. You got a guy who do parentheses, make it
That's
sound
generous.
big, Yeah. And he's become a legend of his own time as well. Ryan here. And when I first got introduced to you, people were calling you Rye as your nickname. And I thought that was actually your name until I realized that it was Ryan. When I think Facebook, I suppose, had to make everybody use their full names, I suppose. That's why you had to change it. But before, I always thought it was just Ryan. I didn't know it was Ryan. So I thought that was kind of cool.
I go by Rye, but yeah, my name on my license is Ryan. But
Okay.
Instagram, I'm Rye, RY_KIHN. Facebook, yeah, it makes you use your legal name. Right. If I'm both Ryan. If some mail comes to my address and it says Ryan, it's probably like nothing good. It's probably a bill or something like that.
Probably. But
So
if it's something cool like a new guitar or something, it's like, oh yeah, it's for Rye.
yeah,
It's
but
for
I've always
Rye.
gone by Rye. In fact, my dad used to. Well, he used to say that he named me after RyKihn, but
Huh.
that doesn't add up because my name's Ryan. So
Maybe he liked rye bread. I don't know. Maybe that was his favorite bread, but of course that's spelled different too. So,
but I don't know. I was just randomly thinking about this the other last night because I watched this video on documentary on Steve Vai.
Oh,
That was pretty cool. His first 30 years, and one thing that I would say was a huge moment for me that was watching the movie Crossroads. If you ever seen that
yes.
movie
Oh,
with
I have it on
Angus,
Blu-ray. Oh yes.
Jean's Trick Bag, that was such a life changer for me, man. That
Oh,
really, I had already this is why you said RyKihn made me think of that movie. But because he did all the slide guitar work on
Yep,
that.
yep, yep. I remember.
But that was
It's
there's a handful of things that really just set me to be like a guitar nerd for the rest of my life, and that was a big one. That was a big one.
it wasn't.
It was that. The first one was that I started just hearing, like, I heard Van Halen 1 for the first time, so I heard Running with the Devil and Eruption and like Ain't
Sure.
Talking About Love, and I was I was floored by the tone and everything. This is when I was
Sure.
really young. Like
Oh yeah.
there was a guitar in the house, and I'd had a few lessons, but it wasn't really something I was really into. It's just another thing that is one of the like 5 things that kids do. You know what I mean? Like I get to karate, soccer, sports, whatever, and then the guitar lessons. But when I saw that, all this happened in the same like 2-year, 3-year period, and also that's like when I hit puberty too. That's probably a big deal. That's something to do with it. Like so hearing Van
Yep.
Halen, and then like that movie, and then within like not too long from that, I was able to be privileged to get lessons with Joe Satriani.
Oh wow.
And Joe was a guitar player for one RyKihn album, Love and Rock and Roll. There wasn't a huge amount of hit. There wasn't any real big hits. I think that was the album after Lucky.
Okay.
So I think the title track was Love and Rock and Roll. But Joe
But
Satriani's all
I
over that.
remember that song "Love Rock and Roll" because
Yeah.
that was it became a song too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny
Yeah.
because there's all these just ripping solos all over that album. That is not. It's just uncharacteristic of the RyKihn band, because
Sure.
I'd say, I don't know, RyKihn band has like a rich legacy of awesome guitar players. Going back from Dave Carpenter was the original guy, but then after that, Greg Douglas was and I just was chatting with him on Facebook the other day. He's the one that played like the lead line on Jeopardy, the dun, dun,
Okay.
so
Sure.
that iconic little part, and then so he was all over that album, whatever album. I guess that would have been. I'm not even sure, but it was either Rock and Roll or Conspiracy. Maybe I think it was
Maybe
Conspiracy.
conspiracy sounds more like conspiracy.
But he was an amazing player, and he was already he was already a successful like studio guy for the time. He had played with Steve Miller, and I think he was on a lot of tracks back in the day.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
and then after he left, I better get this right because
it's gonna be on the internet. Yeah, that's right. The people I send this to are gonna butcher you if you go. No, they won't. But So
the
my which
next,
to me.
I think Joe was that. Joe was after that. So Joe was kind of like he was in this local band called the Squares. He was known as a local badass guitar teacher. His
Yeah.
students were like all his students that I knew because I was barely in high school, but I really looked up to like all his students were in like local bands in the Bay Area. Like obviously Kirk Hammett from Metallica, um, the guitar player from Primus though, Fungo Mungo. There was all these like local Bay Area bands that with varying degrees of like success, but
Uh,
all guitar players and a bunch of metal dudes, which was that's what I was into at the time, you know. Like I was I fell for that whole guitar virtuoso shred thing, you know, Paul Gilbert, Steve Vai, obviously Joe, all those guys. Oh, the guitar player from Testament too. He's actually an awesome player, Alex Skolnick, among others. Those are just off the top of my head. Um, but yeah. So, anyways, I was lucky to get in there, and from the first time I opened the door and it was at a little music store, just a tiny little music store in Berkeley. I think it was called Larson Music, but it was just one of those one-room music stores with a teaching
yeah.
studio in the back. And I opened the front door, and I just heard this insane guitar, like this is just Joe warming up before the lesson, and you couldn't wipe that grin off my face, man.
Yes.
I was like, yeah, that was it. I mean, I think I was good for my age at the time because I was already like playing in bands in high school. We weren't, we weren't killing it or anything like that, but at
Yeah.
least we were out booking gigs and stuff and playing at all these clubs that we
Sure.
weren't old enough to drink or get in. Like sometimes we had to come in the back door and sell tickets. That was the other thing that was kind of brutal at that time.
Yeah.
Because if you're a nobody band, they'd be like, yeah, you can open up for so and so. You gotta, here's 100 tickets at $10 each. You're responsible for 50%. So you got to show up $500 to the gig, or else you ain't playing.
And it seems like with you guys, like like with you, well, especially with your dad's group anyway, because I don't know what you charge for. I mean, with all the other stuff that you do, but it seems like your dad is one of those, the band was one of those reasonable price bands where you can always afford to go see the Grand King band. I'm sure you guys never charged too much for a show, but maybe your dad did back in the day. I don't know, but I see ticket prices now, and it's just like I don't know why people want so much. For I mean they just do. I mean, okay, they deserve to have a lot of money, sure, and all that stuff, but it's like don't rip off the people that are your fans just because they're
True.
fans of yours.
Well, here's the counter argument: is like nobody buys the CDs anymore, so you got to at least pay for it on the back end.
Because everybody
But
wants
I think
digital
that,
downloads now. Nobody collects anymore. It seems like. Well, some
yeah,
people
yeah,
do, but yeah.
or go there, at least buy a tour shirt or something, help the band because a lot of bands make more money. Even successful new rock bands make more money selling merch than they do from like the ticket. Like the ticket price and what they get out of that deal a lot of times just covers the expense of like having a van or if they're big enough, having a tour bus. I mean,
Sure.
I've talked to I got buddies that are in pretty big, like they'd come here to San Francisco and play like for 2 or 3 thousand people at somewhere, all kids, and he's like, man, I'm just a glorified shirt salesman, to be honest with you. So
Yeah, yeah. Nowadays, it's changed. The whole way with the digital age. I would always have thought that the CD was going to be, the popular to this day. But it seems like vinyl has made its return, and it's here to stay for quite a long time. As far as that goes.
yeah,
For
well, I mean, it's definitely it's kind of like a hip thing nowadays. It's kind of a hipster thing, which is cool. I mean, I never got into having a huge hi-fi system. But I've heard of that. Like people will spend thousands and thousands of dollars on on amplifier, tube amps and stuff like that. So, but I think it's cool. A lot of bands can press their own vinyl now, and be creative with the art and stuff. I mean, that's kind of. I mean, when I was back to high school, when I was listening to like some album, I'd be able to just you kind of like look at the album art. You could see all the photos on the sleeve, like all the liner notes. You're like, oh, who
Sure.
produced that? Who's that guy? Special thanks to so and so. Like, who? I wonder who that is. You know, you didn't have the internet. You can't just go look stuff up.
No, no,
You
it was
know, but
right
at
there
least you
for
kind of
you.
get into the album cover, especially if it was a fold out. You know,
Yep.
so
You would
and
hope
then
for that because you're buying something. You would hope that they would include everything that you want, rather than not give it because some don't give you anything, so but most of them did. So yeah,
yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I think it'd be cool if they, if they press albums now to definitely go all in on the art and make it really look as cool as possible and give the fans like extra photos and stuff. Maybe it's half like a digital format, like maybe it goes to a website or something like that. I don't know, you know, but yeah, yeah, it's cool that bands are pressing vinyl again.
you were talking about earlier about your love for Van Halen, and there was a
Mhm.
movie that a lot of people still don't know to this day, unless you either live in that area or lived in that time. And obviously, you lived that time anyway. Uh, there's a movie called The Wildlife that he
Yeah, I
did.
remember.
He did the score for and all the instrumental stuff and everything. And that movie doesn't get any recognition. Nobody like some people remember, but a lot of people just like what are you talking
No,
about?
I
Wildlife.
remember it well. I mean, I don't remember anything about it. Was some sort of a teen party movie,
Yeah,
but
it was
yeah,
like a
Van
sequel
Halen
to
did the
Fast Times.
soundtrack.
Sequel to
Yeah.
Fast Times, Ridgemont High is what it was, and yeah,
Oh, no kidding.
yeah, it was. I mean, it had a good cast. Mostly everybody who you knew from the John Hughes films were pretty much in the movie.
Oh, I'll have to revisit that one.
It's on Blu-ray now. I mean, they actually Mill Creek Entertainment finally did a release of a lot of these old Blu-ray or all these movies that were on VHS and DVD and like with Crossroads, they did a special VHS retro cover kind of like slip cover,
Hmm.
but put it on Blu-ray. So the transfer looks amazing and the sound's pretty amazing if you have a surround sound.
Didn't Eddie Van Halen have a tiny bit in Back to the Future too?
I think
I seem
so.
to remember a scene where Michael J. Fox just he's trying to scare somebody and has a radioactive suit with a Walkman, and he
Yeah,
puts it in
his
their ears, and
father.
it's a Van Halen
Yeah,
tape.
yeah. And
It
he's
was just like a bunch of dive bombs, and he's
because
like,
it was set in the 50s or he was in the 50s
right,
and
he's like,
nobody
I'm
ever
gonna
heard of
fry your
that.
brain.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. That was Eddie Van Halen. So he definitely had a part of that. See, that's the key part too in a movie like Back to the Future, because some people don't remember that either, but all musicians should know about all that stuff. That's history for you, man. That is
Yeah,
history. So
yeah,
I was
yeah.
kind of, I guess I was kind of wondering too. It's like does the legacy continue? Like, do you have like I've never gotten too personal with you, but do you have children that have the same interests like you and try to continue the kid legacy, or is it just up to you and your father and that's
It's
about
up
it?
to me, man. I don't have kids yet. It's getting late in the game too. We'll see what
Well,
happens.
I don't either. I'm 39, so it's like, geez, no, I hear you.
Well, hey, man, like I said, I have a lot of guitar students, so I try to, impart that passion to whoever I'm teaching, and
Uh-huh.
so you could say the legacy lives that way. Actually, but my sister has two boys, and I'm actually giving the youngest one a guitar lesson right after this. So
Oh,
he
okay.
hasn't been bitten by the bug yet. He hasn't been bitten because he's not quite there yet. He's not in high school or anything like that yet, but he does have killer time. Because my thing with like really young kids or just people that aren't as accomplished, I think it's more about getting them just even if it's just strumming one note or just like going dung 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 dung,
Uh-huh.
playing something really easy but locking in with the drums. Like I'll pull up like a drum beat and like I'm trying to
Uh-huh.
teach this kid how to be in a band, not necessarily how to read music. That can come later, right? But
Yeah.
if and then to tell him, hey, drummer is also a musician. It's not just a pattern that you're playing with. So, when you get, it's the band thing is like it's like a family, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
for
Oh,
me it was like I wasn't into sports, so every weekend I would be going and hanging out with my bandmates and jamming, and just hanging out.
but
Um,
does your nephew understand that or does he know much about his grandfather's legacy or your legacy, or just
Oh yeah,
something
yeah.
you guys have done?
He knows about it. He knows about
Okay,
Grandpa. So
okay. Well, that's good then.
because we go over there and do like jam sessions. They got a little drum kit. But the kid, the kids have so much distractions. Like back in the day, you didn't have like rock and roll was kind of like you're into sports or you're into rock or you're into this or that. Now it's like video games, all this there's like 10
Uh,
different things for them to choose from. And music you got to put time into. That's the thing. It's not instant gratification, especially guitar, right? Guitar, you're like you're like, ow, this is painful. Why am I got to press down that hard to make the fret? That's
yeah.
awful, What are you telling me I'm in there? You're telling me I'm in for like, 2 months of that before I get calluses?
Have you ever met somebody since you've been a guitar teacher for quite a while, and you've been around it for a long time? Have you ever met somebody that you were trying to teach that said, "Hey, I got a surprise for you," and that really just like knew what they were doing and like really blew you away like right away? Didn't really need the instructions, but just wanted to show you, "Hey, this is what I can do." Has that ever
Yeah, I
happened
mean,
at all?
yeah, I've had pretty standout like people that had natural talent.
Yeah,
Um, now and then, and that's great if that happens. But yeah, it's kind of just like you got to make an assessment as where the person is at, and then also not only where they are at, but like what kind of music, what are they into? I
sure.
mean, if the person just wants to play Taylor Swift songs and be a songwriter, nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that's bad
No,
at all. I'm
no,
just saying
no,
like that's
no.
different than somebody that wants to play, some metal, technical metal or something like
Oh
that,
yeah,
or
as a guitar player or a teacher, you have to kind of respect all levels of music. So it's like even if it's not your favorite, it doesn't matter. It's whatever you're teaching, the person. So I understand.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I was not tasteful at all when I was a kid. As a guitar player, I was just trying to play the wildest shreddy stuff that I could. And then here's a little Greg Kinband story. So the first when I first got hired, it was my dad had suggested me for the gig, but it was really the bass player, the late Steve Wright, who co-wrote all the hits. Like, he was like the co-songwriter for all the stuff.
wow.
And he was really the band. He was like the musical director, and he was like, because my dad was like, he wouldn't really. He was just all positive. He was so positive. You're like, come on, just tell me what you really think. At least be honest. You're like, but Steve was opposite. He was kind of a ball breaker and in a good way. You know what I mean? But I
Yeah,
needed
yeah.
seasoning, and he's like, all right, a couple things. Number one, we don't want that's innovative guitar playing. We want like we want classic licks, this and that. And he told me exactly what he wanted me to play, and I listened. I wasn't
Okay.
trying to other stuff in there. I mean, I thought I was in the beginning. I was like, oh, I want to really stand out in this band, and then all of a sudden I realized, hey, man, it's not about me. This is a legacy band. You know what I mean? This
Yeah,
is
yeah,
like
yeah.
I have to fit into that, not the other way around. And I've always had that attitude when whatever band I was like, I just want to do justice to the song, or whatever the songwriter is hearing, like try to provide that.
I
So
suppose it's big honor for you to even be included in the band, in the first
absolutely,
place
and I
because
really shouldn't have probably been in there back in the day, although I was getting paid, so it was probably like a barely paid internship. I'm sure they're saving money there. I mean, I started making more later, but not that I was ever getting rich. But I mean, like,
no.
yeah, but kind of a trial, and I, I got better. But I did get seasoned just playing in that band. And I forgot to mention Jimmy Lyon, who was another great guitar player, who was in the Greg Kim band for a time, and he was actually the Eddie Money's guitar player for all those classic albums. So he played all those solos, like on Two Tickets to Paradise, all those classic
Sure,
solos.
sure, sure.
Um, who, believe it or not, retired from music. He was a commercial pilot, and he
Oh,
moved to like Georgia. I think he's retired now, but
okay.
but Steve would tell me like, listen to Jimmy Lyon. That is what the perfect guitar player for the Greg Kinn band is. So you go and be that.
And now, with all the years have passed and time has passed, and you got a pretty good current band too, because I've talked to Michael Berry before, or Robert Berry, I should
Robert
say.
Berry, yeah,
Yeah, there's a guy I know named Michael Berry, so I got it all mixed up. But Robert
all good.
Berry, and he seems like a guy that kind of knows his way around the music industry too. How did you guys ever, or how did your dad find him? Just being old friends from a long time ago, or just
I
hey,
don't know that they
you're
were
good?
friends. I think his just name was out there, and he has a studio in San Jose. That's a pretty awesome recording studio. So
Yeah,
I don't know how the introduction happened, but he was a great addition to the band. Not only is he a great bass player, he's a really good producer, and he sings well, so he brings a lot to the table. And he's really done a lot. I didn't know how much stuff he's actually done when we were playing together in the beginning. But
sure.
he's he's done a lot. I mean, just look at his bio. I mean, he's done you know all this progressive stuff
I
in the
always see it
progressive
posted
rock
on,
scene.
yeah, I always see it posted on Facebook all the time. Always something about some new albums that he's doing. He did like a Christmas thing a long time ago.
Yeah,
Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and all types of
right.
stuff. And I'm just like, wow. I mean, that's cool that you can collaborate with somebody like that who can bring just as much knowledge to the table as anybody else, and you guys can just click and make it work. Because if you had people that were just like didn't know anything about music or music history, and you try to put together a band, sure, you might be able to play good and everything, but you should learn about the history of it before you even try it. Just and have some type of acknowledgement that hey, this is exactly what I should be doing. You know,
Yeah, I agree. I agree. You got to play for the song, and you got to it's about the band, it's about the band. It's about the
absolutely.
unit. It's about the sum of all the parts. It ain't about just you standing out, right? I mean, that's cool if that's, some I mean, Van Halen, different story. That is the band, he is.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, I agree, man. I agree.
Well, I only have like one more question for you, and then
Mhm.
and basically just kind of something. Well, first I want to say thank you for letting me do this and even doing a second part. I didn't know how
Yeah, no
Zoom was
worries.
going to be. Normally they let you go an hour, or longer or whatever, but they always change their rules and all that.
I always
Anyway,
get cut off at yeah, go ahead.
no, I mean I appreciate it because it's been fun to talk to you, and I've been trying to get a hold of your father for a long time, and if you don't do interviews anymore, totally understand. I'm just happy we could do something today. That was nice of you to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I had a good time, man.
I guess my last question is like, what's your legacy then? What do you want people to remember about you? That with everything that you accomplished and plan to do in the future. What's your main thing that you want people to remember?
I mean, just as a kind of like as that blue collar working musician, that's that's in the back grinding it out, Also, I think honestly, like more the teaching aspect is going to be something that's going to continue on long after I'm done performing, because it's just something I've always loved. So I'd really like that legacy to be for first of all somebody that enjoys helping people, number one, right? And then
Yeah,
number two, that I can like help people with guitar, because that's like that's my expertise. So it's something I've always enjoyed. I didn't like set out to ever be a guitar teacher. That's not like what I was like my planning was, but
uh-huh.
and I wasn't like super good at it in the beginning. I kind of just learned by doing it, but now I've been doing it for like 30 years already. So I've gotten
Yeah.
good at it. I think I'm like almost I might be a better teacher than I am a guitar player. So I don't know.
Did you
Um
ever think about
but
doing a book about your life story? Because I think that'd be kind of interesting to
I
to
never
share
thought
people your knowledge about
working
it.
on music for an album. So
Okay,
I'd like to do a RyKihn album. That's going to be hopefully 2023.
that'd be awesome.
I've done recording projects before, but this time I wanted something that's like cuz I spent a bunch of money and went down and like to LA and recorded with producer, and what we came up with was not really me, although it was awesome, the final product. But it's like you want something that you can get behind and tour behind for the rest of your life. That's you.
Sure, sure, sure.
You know what I mean? Like when I did it before, it was like there was no solos. there was cool guitar parts, but it was like, whatever, for whatever reason, like, but I want to have a guitar solos in there, man.
Are you talking
'Cause that's
those?
what
Are you talking those instrumentals that you recorded a while back ago? Or are you talking new stuff, like actual new material?
now I'm working on new stuff. The stuff I'm
Oh,
talking
okay,
about was 5 or 6 years ago. No, it had vocals
okay,
and stuff, but it was more
okay,
along the lines of like, I don't know. It was just more. It was kind of trendy, we're like modern rock. So like, it had a harder edge, um, but
okay.
it didn't. Ended up just, I don't know. I should have done stuff that was truer to myself instead of, not to take anything away from it, because it ended up sounding awesome. But you want something that's like your reflection of your musical soul. Not to get corny, but
Sure.
um, so I'd like that to be, just a musical legacy there, and also imparting guitar knowledge to the next generation. You know, and maybe
Awesome.
do an educational book. I'm working on like
Oh,
guitar courses and stuff, video classes.
oh,
So
there you go. Yeah.
I'd like to be more active. And plus, the fact that you can kind of do a lot of that remote now frees you up to, not have, you could live anywhere. So
Pretty much, pretty much. Well, I appreciate it, man. This is, like I said, this has been a lot of fun, and just thank you again for just being a cool guy, and just giving a little guy like me even though we've talked before, but a chance to finally talk. Like it's almost like we're talking live in person. Even though it's to be
I
in the
think those are the
computer, but
best podcast. I'm a huge podcast fan, man, I run a lot, and I don't run a lot, but I do like a lot of walking and with spurts of running. So I'm outside all the time exercising, and I love
sure.
listening to podcasts about any subject, of expertise. If you're listening to experts talk about anything, to me it's interesting. So, especially
Okay.
music.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I
Not that
appreciate
I'm saying, I'm not blowing my own
it.
horn like I'm an expert, but just if anybody was wondering what's it like to be a working musician in San Francisco, in the SF Bay,
Yeah.
in now after 2022.
And who
It's been a
knows
trip.
with the people that I'll be sending this to, as far as my viewers anyway, they pretty much range from my home area to anybody worldwide, I guess, because it'll be YouTube and then wherever else. So hopefully, I mean,
Yeah,
hopefully we people will have an interest in this effect of learning about you, because like I said, you don't get talked about enough. So I figure we have
appreciate
you
it, man.
on. All right. Well, thank you,
Hey,
Ryan.
yeah, hey, everybody add me on Instagram then. RY_KIHN. Because I post
Absolutely.
clips all the time of like me jamming and stuff. Um, and yeah, let me know when this goes up on YouTube. I want to check it out.
Absolutely. It'll probably be around New Year's, probably. I was going to do like a New
Okay,
Year's
awesome.
thing. All right. Thanks,
All right,
man. I
Sean.
appreciate it.
All right.
Talk
Thanks
to you
again.
later.
Take care, buddy.
Bye.
Have a